Hey gang, welcome to my channel. I'm the Pony 314, and have a look at the communist classic, used all over the world, but still managed to become an American favorite. Yep, this is the SKS. So, here are the basics. This is a Russian-designed, gas-operated, semi-automatic carbine, which fires a 7.62 by 39 round, the same round that the AK-47 fires. It has an integral 10-round magazine. Rounds can be loaded singly or using a stripper clip. Barrel length 20 inches. Has a, let's see if you can see this here. It has a notch rear sight that adjusts from between 30 to 1,000 meters. Uses a folding bayonet. The safety right here on the trigger guard. Also, when empty, the magazine follower locks the bolt open. So, the SKS stands for, and I am not going to pronounce this correctly, Samozaryadny Karabin Systemy Simonova. Say that even one time fast. But it was designed by Sergei Grigorovich Simonov in 1945, just before the end of World War II in Europe. World War II had shown that the age of the bolt-action rifle as a standard was ending. I mean, think about it. A rifle cartridge with a range of 2,000 yards wasn't particularly ideal. It was virtually unheard of for an infantryman to fire at anything at even half that distance. So, what was the point? Well, that's what the Russians wondered, and they began experimenting with rifles firing smaller intermediate rounds, with a new emphasis on semi-automatic. So the 7.62 by 39 round was introduced in, I think, 1943, as a possible replacement for the 7.62 by 54 round, which was fired by the Russian Mosin Nagant bolt-action rifle and Russian machine guns. The SKS, though, not the first Russian semi-automatic rifle. They'd fielded the SVT-38 and the SVT-40 throughout the war, but those were usually in the hands of some NCOs and specially trained troops. It never came close to being a standard. So, Sergei Grigorovich Simonov designed the SKS with the aforementioned intermediate round and stuck with the tried-and-true stripper clip system rather than a detachable magazine. Sights adjusted to a maximum of 1,000 meters, a pretty clear indication that an infantryman was not expected to fire at an enemy at past that distance. And of course, it had an integral bayonet that folded under the barrel. Well, take a look. Mine actually doesn't have one. Came without one. It's meant to have one. That's why I got it for dirt cheap. I keep meaning to get a bayonet for it, but I guess I just never get around to it. Oh, while I'm thinking about it, it has this really cool feature. There's a hinged magazine so that you can dump your ammo all at once. Not bad. But the SKS was just how the Russians have traditionally liked their military weapons, in that it's simple, easy to mass produce, easy to use, it's effective, no real concern for aesthetics, and of course, it's reliable. So, Simonov's design got into action on the Eastern Front in the closing days of World War II in Europe, and apparently their results are pretty good. I mean, imagine it, a semi-automatic rifle, what that can do in street-to-street, house-to-house, and room-to-room fighting. And it was certainly enough that the Russian military adopted the SKS as their new standard in 1949. The Russians themselves produced, I think, about 2.7 million between 1945 and 1956. But the SKS didn't last very long as their standard rifle. Throughout the 50s, the game-changing AK-47 became increasingly available, and so the SKS was replaced in frontline service. The Russians do still use the SKS for ceremonial purposes. I think their border regiments might still use it. Don't quote me on that. But the Russians shared this design with the rest of the communist world, and so the SKS wound up having global significance. Some were exported, I believe, but some countries, quite a few actually, put it into production themselves. So there were some variations in the design. But China, North Korea, all over Eastern Europe, French and American troops came up against the SKS in Vietnam. And in all, 97 countries across the world have employed it to some degree or another as a military weapon. And perhaps predictably, this also found its way in large numbers into the hands of insurgent groups all over the world. It's a small wonder the SKS found such popularity across the communist world. These things can take a serious beating and keep right on firing. It doesn't take very long to learn how to use it and take care of it, and I'll tell you what, I have never once seen an SKS jam over a lot of years of either seeing these fired or firing them myself. I'm sure it's happened here and there, but the SKS is a hell of a reliable weapon. Works just fine in all kinds of conditions. As a carbine, it's fairly light, it's easy to carry, easy to handle. That 7.62 by 39 round has, well, pretty serious punch. So, just imagine what this thing can do if you came up against it at close to medium range. Semi-automatic, 10 rounds, yeah, it would be something you'd have to worry about. Now, don't get me wrong, I mean, look at this thing. Very rough and ready looking weapon, isn't it? Nobody would ever accuse it of being pretty. But to get the job done, no one ever said that it had to be. But somewhere around 20 million, I think, SKSs have been made since 1945 in a lot of different countries. So, that just goes to show you don't have to be pretty to be popular. The SKS makes a very good range gun, so we're going to take it to the range right about now. So, let's hit the road. Time's a-wasting. Welcome to the Municipal Shooting Range in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, and check out what we have today. The SKS. We have a bleeding zombie target a few dozen yards downrange, and we're going to shoot the ever-loving hell out of it with this beauty. So let's get started. Oh yeah! So moving on, right here in America is where you're going to find some of the SKS's biggest fans. Towards the end of the 80s and throughout the 90s, both Russia and China exported huge numbers of these to America. So many that these were available in just about every gun store and pawn shop for not a lot of money back in those days. That, and there's also the fact that the 7.62 by 39 round, well, let's just say dirt cheap, widely available. So some of these scoped, some have polymer stocks, pistol grips, some have been fitted with 20 or 30 round magazines. So it is possible to get an SKS in all manner of configurations. It's a very popular varmint rifle here in the States, range rifle, deer rifle. And you know what? Taking a step back, it probably seems weird that a communist classic used by what we Americans would call the bad guys would wind up being one of the most popular sporting rifles in America. But it happened. I'll bet that Sergei Grivilovich Simonov didn't see that coming. Well, there's a target down there in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, that doesn't have enough holes in it. And the SKS is just the rifle to remedy that situation. So, let's get back down there. We're now going to do our second shoot with the SKS. We have another stripper clip loaded and ready to go. So, let's have some fun, let's dance, let's hit the road, and all those other cute sayings. So, that was our episode on the communist classic, the SKS. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And if you like what we do on this channel, feel free to like, share, comment, subscribe, the usual YouTube stuff. I'm the Pony 314.
and I'll see you at the range.